Welcome to the first episode of Season 4 and a very happy new year to you. It's the 1-year anniversary of the Make Movement Matter podcast, so I thought we'd celebrate by starting the year looking back. Last year saw 36 episodes, 29 of which were interviews with amazing guests who kindly gave their time to help us learn more about their specialist area or their personal stories. So if you're a regular listener, I want to thank you so much for your support, and if you're new, then a very warm welcome. We've got lots of brilliant new guests already lined up for you in Season 4. As we stand at the beginning of 2025, there are always a mix of feelings of excitement for fresh starts, renewed energy to get consistent, as well as maybe some overwhelm about where to begin. But here's the thing. When you realise that movement is about so much more than running marathons or spending hours in the gym, that's where you find the good stuff. Finding what works for you, noticing what brings you joy, and how to make them seamlessly become part of your life is what this podcast is all about. It's twofold, both in terms of the way you choose to move your body throughout the day, as well as finding forms of exercise you enjoy that we all know does us so much good. This episode is a collection of some inspiring moments from some of my wonderful guests so far, who've shown that movement can take so many forms. My hope is that by the end of this episode, you'll feel motivated to take that all-important first small step towards a healthier, happier you. Let's start this year with positivity, possibility, and let's make movement matter together. Let's begin with Alison Thompson, who has the playful work name The Safety Elf. Alison reminds us that movement doesn't have to be a big event to help break up periods of sitting at work. It can be as simple as standing up, stretching and resetting your posture. Her wiggle breaks are an easy, fun way to build movement into your day without leaving your desk. Let's hear Alison's take on how little moves can make a big difference. So take us through a wiggle break, Alison. What would you advocate as a wiggle break? What would you suggest?
Well, you can do micro wiggle breaks or max out the wiggle break. So a micro wiggle break, we're going to do it now. It's just standing up, just a quick stretch, might be roll your shoulders, shake your arms out, sit back down again. But the magic of it is that when you sit back down again, you consciously reset your posture. So if you're in the keyboard slump, that forward C-shaped slump or a lean, don't go straight back there. Come back into a neutral position. But obviously it's lovely if you take a longer wiggle break, but I would rather people just moved.
Yes.
Even if that's where you start, I have this theory that once you experience it, you'll actually want to do more of it anyway. But people think just standing up and sitting down, well, that can't be enough. But actually, we know from some amazing research from NASA that that actually just standing up twice an hour in every waking hour, and that's not like 36 stand-ups in the first hour that you're up, it is within every waking hour, can actually offset a lot of the negative health effects that are linked with our sedentary lifestyles. It's different from fitness, but it's those kind of enzyme, hormone, digestive, breathing, all of those things that are very much impacted by the sedentary lifestyle. So don't underestimate the power of any opportunity to move.
Next up, it's Dr. Laura and Dr. Katie, who are reminding us about the brilliant idea of exercise snacking. It's about breaking movement into little manageable pieces that fit into your day. Their advice is perfect for anyone who feels too busy or overwhelmed to carve out large chunks of time for exercise. These small moments, whether it's stretching, climbing the stairs, or even a quick walk, can add up to big benefits over time.
Have you heard of the term exercise snacking, Wendy?
Oh, yes.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm sure your audience, if they are familiar, will have come across it before, but perhaps if they're new to this term. So as we say, movement or physical activity is probably the phrase that we use more than, say, exercise.
Absolutely.
And breaking up the day. So if it's somebody that's working at home, or a sedentary job. It doesn't have to be home working, but obviously we've had a big push towards that in the last few years. But movement to break up that sitting sedentary posture of being still has so many benefits in terms of bringing on that muscle mass eventually. And just listening to your body and thinking, gosh, do I feel a bit stiff? Do I feel like I could do with a stretch? That really can help motivate you to start thinking about how it feels good to let your skeleton and your body move. So little snippets. So if you're sat down most of the day, 5 or 10 minutes, can you go further away from your desk in whatever environment? So can you use the bathroom on a different floor if that's relevant to you? Can you get a drink from somewhere else? Can you build in something else during the day so that you, over time, those little fragments actually build up to have a significant impact on weight bearing and for your muscle strength? Because if you don't use it, you lose it. And, moving your skeleton in that way will definitely help your muscle and your muscle memory to build, and you'll get the benefits from that rather than thinking that you have to be lifting dumbbells and kettlebells straight up. That's a good place to start with your body weight work, and simple movements that are everyday movements is a good place.
Yeah, absolutely. Would you agree, Katie?
Yeah, definitely. And I think people are quite fearful of the word sort of muscle mass and strength training, because you automatically think of, as you say, sort of, the people lifting really heavy things in the gym. But actually, anything that builds up muscle is a form of strength training. So whether that's, having some weights at home, don't have to be heavy ones, so you can start off with 1, 2, 3 kilogram weights, whether it's resistant bands, which we're real fans of in our clinic because they're really versatile and easy, sort of the elastic bands that you can put around your legs or use them for arm exercises, other things like yoga, Pilates, swimming, dancing. They're all forms of strength exercises. So anything that builds muscle mass, and just incorporating movement into your everyday life is where you start to build up muscle.
Talking with Jess Meredith, we discussed the importance of making movement feel simple and achievable so that we can all find small ways to add movement into our everyday lives. Even the tiniest shifts in how we move can add up to a healthier, happier you and require very little extra time in your schedule.
So I have a friend, Alex Cunningham, who does mindfulness, and he said he always parks his car in the parking space that's really far away from wherever he needs to go, so that's increasing his steps every time. And it's such a small thing, and he's still using his car because it's not realistic to be like, I'm never going to use my car, I'm never going to sit down ever again, but I'm just going to introduce these little things where I can. And sometimes we just need to take a step back and allow ourselves to come up with some of these simple ideas and then implement them in our routines.
In the first part of this next clip, Janie Holiday talks about breaking free from the expectations we often place on ourselves when it comes to movement. She encourages us to ask, what works for me? The key is to make movement enjoyable and enticing for your own lifestyle, so it's easier to continue. Let's hear her thoughts on finding your personal approach to staying active.
Actually, what I've learned over the last, 24 years ago, nearly, it was in February, I became an aerobics instructor, is how we have to do what works for us. And that actually takes quite a lot of courage to take a step back and go, actually, what's good for me? Some people are social exercises. Some people are solo exercises. Some people need to be outside. Some people would like to be with big music. Some people, just naturally thrive on longer exercises. Some people actually prefer small ones. And so I always say this, it's about ripping up the rule book. Forget everything you know, forget everything you saw, and then ask yourself from now on, what can I do that's going to keep me moving? And most importantly, what's going to help make getting to the movement more enticing and more enjoyable? Because that looks wildly different for everybody.
In the second clip, Janie takes on the all or nothing mindset, which she sees as one of the biggest barriers to long-term success. This rigid way of thinking, where feeling the pressure to go all in can make you find yourself doing nothing at all, leaves us stuck and frustrated. Instead, Janie highlights the beauty of finding balance and focusing on small, sustainable changes that fit into real life. This is a powerful reminder that movement doesn't have to be perfect to make an impact.
The biggest unhelpful belief I have seen in my journey, both in the health and fitness industry and as a life coach and mindset coach and business coach, is the all or nothing mindset. So the all or nothing mindset is basically, I've got to do everything 100%. It's got to be perfect. It's got to be done by the guidelines or however you're seeing it, or it's not worth doing at all. And it's cognitive distortion. It's very fixed, rigid thinking. It actually comes from programming, typically from when we were growing up. You get a gold star for getting 10 out of 10. You don't get a gold star for like putting your PE kit on the peg, every day for 300 days of the year at school. We are rewarded for the top stuff. So that's partly where that comes in. And there's the on wagon, off wagon, if you're drinking or not drinking. That's kind of where that term comes from.
Right.
But what we have to understand is there is the magic of something in the middle of all or nothing. But a lot of people are searching for the all. They're looking, and what's crucial in this, Wendy, is that when you start talking yourself into that you are going to do the all, get a dopamine hit. Oh, yes, you feel good because you're telling yourself you're going to do it. But actually, when it comes to doing it, it's either unrealistic or you start it or you haven't really thought about, have I got the time? Am I doing this at the right time? I mean, all of these things are so important. I know we'll come on to how to make changes in a second. But if you have got the all or nothing belief and mindset, you are going to be stuck striving for perfection.
Jill and Andrew from Wildstrong talk about the power of community when it comes to movement. Whatever you choose to do, they tell us having the right people around you can make movement not only more enjoyable, but also more sustainable. Their message is simple. Find your people, embrace the fun, and let them help keep you motivated. In the second part, Jill shares how getting outside can change the way you see movement altogether. She explains how interacting creatively with your environment can transform a simple walk into a playful adventure. It's about seeing opportunities for movement everywhere and making it a part of your everyday life. Let's hear their thoughts on building community and finding creativity outdoors.
As with everything, and if you want to stay at something, you've got to find your people. So finding a few friends or one friend that you know will kind of come outside with you, and being the slightly weird ones who are kind of balancing on things or climbing on things or jumping off things with your kids. It's much easier to do when you're in a group or if there are a few of you rather than you on your own. When you're off on your walk or if you're a runner as well, and you want to think about kind of different movements that you can kind of weave into your walk to make it a bit more interesting. It's nice when you start moving more and you start exposing yourself to different ways that your body moves and how you can interact with the environment differently. The way that you look at the environment that you live in or where you work or where you go to school or what kids to school completely changes, because suddenly you realise that there's something, I think that's actually an opportunity for me to sort of wiggle under it or to jump over it or to balance along it.
Beneficial movement comes in many forms. Lucy Butler shows us how movement and mindfulness come together in the garden. Whether you're digging, planting, or just pottering about with a cup of tea, gardening is a beautiful way to stay active without ever setting foot in a gym. It's low impact, adaptable for all ages, and a wonderful excuse to spend time outdoors. Let's hear how Lucy found both physical and emotional strength through her garden.
Range of movements, isn't there? So you've obviously got the more physical side of it, the digging, the lifting, and then you've got sort of down to sort of things like your seed sowing, your deadheading, so things that sort of aren't quite as taxing. And I think the great thing about it is that people can just sort of do as much or as little as they want. If they want to do the more physical side of it, they can. If they don't, if they just want to potter around. So I think certainly as you get older, I think it's a great way of sort of keeping mobile, but without sort of really sort of putting like heavy impact on your body.
Joanna Hall underlines the importance of our fundamental movement skill, walking, but not just any walking. Joanna talks about walking with intention, using good technique to unlock incredible benefits for your body and mind. And she's got a brilliant tip for mapping out quick, manageable routes to make it easy to fit into your day to find your way to a stronger, healthier you.
And I think a really good task to maybe bash down some barriers is to find yourself, if I may share this with you, I think this is quite a useful thing, to find yourself 3 locations where you spend quite a bit of time. And those 3 locations may be from your desk in your home, they may be from the school car run, they may be from the supermarket, they may be from a relative who you see, but find yourself 3 locations. And from each of those locations, I would encourage you to actually find yourself a 5-minute outback route, a 10-minute outback route, and a 15-minute outback route. So, and just map this down on a piece of paper, because what you're wanting to do is reduce the concentration, the thinking time, because if you're having to think about something, we tend to get a bit distracted from really why we're doing it. We know from neuroscience that when we get distracted, it can take sometimes about 25 minutes to get back on track to really what we're going to do. And then we've lost maybe those 5 minutes, those 10 minutes of when we could do that.
Next up is Daryl Edwards, who reminds us about the importance of being a playful adult. He reminds us that movement doesn't have to feel like work. It can be pure joy. From dancing to your favourite song and playing games, his approach is all about bringing fun back into how we move, whatever brings a smile to your face. Let's hear Daryl's infectious take on movement as play.
I say to my, some of my clients, I'm like, play a song you loved when you were 15 years old, or that you will always get up and dance to when you're at a wedding or some sort of celebration. And fine, you might have some alcohol in you at the time, but what is that song? What is that feeling? What will draw you to the floor that you're like, hey, come with me. I want to share this moment with you. And it could be, as I say, it could be a song. It could be a sport. It could be a game that you loved playing as a kid that you want to play again as an adult. So that's my second choice. I create games or, remodel games that I played as a kid in adult form. That's pretty much what the primal play method is. And so for me, that's the second most exciting of physical activities, after me dancing, right? I can't access dancing all the time. I would love to, but again, I can't force my love of a particular movement style and pattern on everyone else, but everyone has that something, and that makes it easier for you to one, access, makes it accessible, makes it sustainable. You want to repeat that, and probably the bonus is if you can find somebody to do that with, whether it's your kids, whether it's your peers, whether it's your friends, your partner, then again, it's a match made in heaven, and you're likely to want to continue.
For our final clip, we hear from the wonderful Bianca Hagen, who reminds us of the joy of moving like we did as children, to feel freedom through movement. She encourages us to reconnect with that energy, even in small ways. What did you love doing as a child? This clip is the perfect ending, inspiring us to embrace movement as something joyful and fun.
And then I started remembering, how did I move as a kid? I moved so much. I did cartwheels and all that stuff, So I just think, maybe find your inner child, and take baby steps. Who were you as a child? I mean, you moved a ton, right?
Yeah. What did you love?
Just take baby steps.
What did you enjoy? Yeah.
Yeah. Did you like to spin? I mean, I'm not saying go all out and just start doing cartwheels, although I did start doing that. I kind of went a little crazy with the whole movement stuff. But I noticed that when I did those things, I just felt like the endorphins coming up back up again, like when I felt when I was a child, and that had just died down, because you just look at other adults around you and nobody's moving that way. And then I started to kind of become more like, you know what, maybe they should be moving this way. Yeah. So I'm going to start doing cartwheels too, because it's good for me.
And there we have it, 9 brilliant voices, each offering their inspiring take on how to make movement a joyful part of your life this year. Whether it's a quick wiggle at your desk, a mindful walk around the block, or even rediscovering the simple joy of playing like a child, every moment of movement adds up. It's not about being perfect, it's about finding what feels right for you and just getting started. Thank you so much for joining me for this special episode. I hope you found some nuggets of inspiration to help you take that first step, whatever that looks like for you. This season of Make Movement Matter has so much more to offer, with incredible guests, practical advice, and inspiring stories to keep you motivated all year long. Here's to a 2025 filled with energy, fun, and plenty of moments where movement truly matters. There's no wrong way to start. I'll be back next week with the first interview episode of Season 4 with Rachel Tyler, talking about all things feet, gait, and overall movement. I hope you'll tune in, and if you enjoy the podcast, I'd be so grateful for you to take the time to leave a review wherever you listen. See you next time.